I'll tell you, this is not probably the right way to do it, or because I am notorious for breaking rules and for, huh?
Sorry.
I don't need comments from you for that.
I was going to say notorious.
Oh, notorious. So I do things the way I do them, so those of you who have been formally trained, please contain your, you'll just go off because I'm not doing it the way everybody else does. But I can tell you that I'm successful and I'm fast and it works for me. So I'm just gonna share with you what I do to accurately cut. So I start with the fabric, and this is, I don't pre-wash. I know that's another thing we can talk about, but I don't. And so this is the fold that came on, and this is here are the selvages up here, right here. And my fabric, thankfully, came off the bolt pretty nicely. I'm not seeing distortions. I'm not seeing like it's stretched or it's uneven. It looks pretty good, which is what I want. So I didn't even fold this or anything. I just left it like this because this is how I like to cut it. So I take it with the fold by me, and I'm hoping you guys can see this. Michael, you'll have to tell me. I take it and I take the fold and I line it up and I eyeball it to where it's about, it's kind of like 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more from the selvage edge. And I can see that it's the same all the way across. Now, if you want to make sure it's absolutely the same and you don't trust your eyeballs, you can measure periodically to make sure that it is whatever a consistent measurement is. But this is for me. I know that's good. I'm good to go. Now you'll see that even though I cut it, ooh, my drink needs to go away. That even though I cut this off the bolt, my edge, even when I line up the fold to the selvage, my edges are way uneven. I don't know if you can you see that? Let me see if I can lift it. Here's my cut edge, and here's the selvage underneath. So it's pretty far off, but I know that this is laying nice and flat, that this fold is right along the selvage evenly. So I know that this part is gonna have to get cut off because it's not even. But that's how I start. If you do this, you're gonna have a lot of success, okay? So that's how I cut. I only use the larger rotary cutter, and I use a 12.5-inch square. And I'm gonna show you why I use such a big square. So let's say I'm gonna cut, I don't know, 2-inch strips, okay? So what I like to do is, I'm not gonna just measure 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches. Let's say I need 4 of them. So 4 of them would be 8 inches, right? So I'm gonna look at where the 8 inch is on my ruler, and I'm gonna make sure that that's far enough over from all those raw edges so that I can make sure that I'm not gonna end up with one that's cut off, right? So, give yourself a little bit there. And then what I do is the lines that are on the ruler, these lines along the bottom, especially this one, I'm gonna line that up along the bottom fold. There we go. I'm gonna move back over because I only need 4 strips. There we go. So what have I done? The 8-inch here that I'm touching here is through all 4 layers. Those raw edges are kind of off to the side away from it. And the horizontal markings on the ruler are touching that bottom folded edge. Now, I do that because I need to make sure that this is straight with this. So if this is on if the horizontal markings are on the fold, I know this is a 90-degree angle, which will take, because you guys know when you open your strips and you got an elbow, you don't want an elbow, right? So if you get a 90-degree angle and it's straight, when you open it, there's not going to be that elbow. And the reason that you do this with the 8, and I'll show you why, you don't have to move the fabric as much, which is going to give you more accuracy as well. Plus it gives me a bigger area here to make sure I'm lined up. If I lined up over here with only 2 inches, the chances of me wiggling, hit my body too, but wiggling the ruler off a little bit, it can happen. And even a little tiny bit is gonna give you an elbow in your strip. So think about how many strips you need. So we're gonna pretend we need 4 2-inch strips. We're gonna get that 8-inch there, line up that horizontal, and then I'm gonna make my first cut. Are we ready to do that? Everybody's following along?
So, yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna make that first cut. Now I'm gonna move this piece away because I'm not using it right now. Now I'm not gonna fling it off because I am gonna use it again.
No flinging?
No flinging.
Not like at the grocery store?
No, not like at the grocery store.
Okay, good.
Now, this is the only time I'll move the fabric for all these strips. And I moved it around. See how I flipped it around? And the reason I did that is because remember we took a little bit bigger bite? Now I want to cut it at 8. Now, I'm not going to line up on the selvage. I'm going to still use that fold. And I'm lining up one of the horizontal lines and the 8-inch. So, now I have it. The 8-inch is right there. It's right on the edge, that 8-inch line. And this one is still, because I did line it up and I had a lot to measure with, that horizontal line is still good. So I know I'm square and I'm gonna cut. Now, this is why I do it this way. One is to give me more area to line up, but also now I'm just gonna scoot my ruler over 2 inches every time. Now I'm lining up on the 6. Now I'm gonna line up on the 4. I'm gonna line up on the 2. And I didn't have to move the fabric or anything, I just moved the ruler. So now I have 4 2-inch strips that are perfect. I was hopeful there, huh guys? We got it. So there's my 4 2-inch strips. Okay, now let's say I wanted to make squares. I needed to cut some squares. So I'm gonna scoot this back over. I haven't really moved it. I'm checking to make sure, yep, my selvage is still right where it was. I'm good to go. My cut edge is straight this time because I cut it myself. I know that's a straight edge. I can use that edge. So what if I want to cut 6.5-inch squares? I'm lining the ruler up, that edge on the 6.5. Again, I'm lining up that fold on the horizontal lines to make sure I have that 90-degree angle, and then I'm going to cut. Oop. And I cut too quick. This is a good example. Okay. There we go. There. Okay. That happens. It happens to me too. I try not to push hard because you don't want to wear out your blade any faster than you have to. But you do need to press hard enough to get through all the layers. Right. And sometimes I don't press hard enough at the start, but I do as I get further away. Well, as shown in the grooves in my cutting mat and the.
Well, it's a normal thing to do though.
Yeah. But you saw I lined it back up and I just hit it again and everything was fine. Okay, now I'm going to open it up. And I know I have 2 layers and I see where the selvages are. So I'm going to come in a little more because I don't want the selvages in my blocks. I just want the fabric. So I'm going to come in and make sure that my 6.5 is not anywhere near the selvages. So I come in about 1 inch. And I'm lining up again any one of the horizontal lines. I could line it up here. I could line it up here. It just doesn't matter because they're all horizontal lines and I'm looking for 6.5. There we go. Then remember this one's got the selvage on it, so I'm going to flip it around. Now this is where I can line up the horizontal line and the edge. Get a perfect 90-degree corner. And use that corner to make my 6.5-inch cut. So now I have my squares. I have 2. Because I cut it. I don't open it all the way up. I only open it up to the fold. And then I'm gonna, that's a straight edge, so then I can keep cutting across. My ruler's only 12.5, so I can't cut 2 at once, but I can do this, move it aside, come back in, and do it again. So now I have my 6.5 inch squares. What the most important thing is, I think, for accuracy, is making sure this fold is straight and the same distance from the very edge of the selvage, and then making sure that you line up this edge and this edge to get that 90-degree angle. If you get that 90-degree angle, you're going to not have elbows, everything's gonna be fit perfectly. Now, what if you had to cut triangles from this? So how do you do? I only cut about 2 at a time because those have already been cut together and they're perfect. I haven't pulled them apart. What I do is I just lay the ruler, and this part for me is just, you can use the lines on your ruler. I guess I could be smart and do that for you guys. And line that up there. Because there is a diagonal line on your ruler, on most of them. There's also some others, there's 60 degrees, there's all that, but this is the 45 degree angle. But I don't really need it. I just want to make sure that my ruler is just to the left of the corner on both of them.
On the points.
On the points.
Right.
And it's not right on the point because there is, just like my dad taught me when you cut plywood.
Yep.
You have, let's say you have 8 inches of plywood and you cut it in half. You're not going to have 2 4s. You're going to have 2 3 7/8, or 3 15/16 or whatever. But you're going to, there's a certain amount you lose on every cut.
Because of the thickness of the blade.
Right.
Now
So
this
one's
way
thin, but the way it touches the ruler.
Oh, true. Yes.
You have to consider there is a little bit of width to the blade.
Yes.
And you have to go just and I'm not over, I couldn't even tell you the measurement because it's just a smidge.
It's a hair.
It's a hair, it's a smidge. It's just to the left of it. And this kind of comes with just experience of knowing trial and error to get your points perfect like that. There we go. Okay. Now the other thing is, once you make a bias cut, you don't want to handle your squares a lot. This bias cut will want to wave and bloom. So I usually don't cut until I'm ready to sew. The other thing I usually do, and we'll talk about this another time, is I usually do the one where you draw a line and you sew a 1/4 inch one way and a 1/4 inch another way and then cut it apart. So I'm not sewing with a bias edge. Bias edge is just wigging out. I'm always thinking I'm gonna stretch it, and then when you go to press it, you know you've stretched it because it's kind of wonked. It doesn't quite press right. Okay, questions about cutting? No? Did that help at all? Like I said, the important part is to make sure you get that 90 degree. Now let me tell you, while Michael reads and Sean reads, or whoever reads, the quilt behind me is called Mother's Mistake. The reason, and I've told you guys this before, but the reason it's Mother's Mistake is my mom was making this pattern. She wanted to do steps and slides, but she miscut all of it. So this one, I can't remember, I think it does 3 inch, I can't remember, but it was miscut. Now, the good thing was she was accurate in her miscut, so they were all consistent. Yes, Michael?
Here's a question.
Yes, sir.
Do you measure on the inside edge or outside edge?
On
the line that you cut.
for the triangle,
Yes.
I just to the left of it.
Okay.
So here's my blade coming, I go over a little bit. Is that what you?
That's asked by Hetty, so is that good, Hetty?
Yeah, let me know if not, if that wasn't the one you were asking about. So she had a whole stack of things that were cut the wrong way. So instead, and it was yards and yards and yards and yards because she was making a king size quilt. So quickly used the pieces she had to come up with the design behind me. And it was perfect for that. But I also like to cut. I don't mind cutting. I'm fast at it. I've done it so much. For me, it's really relaxing. I know everybody who hates cutting's like, what? I don't know. It's because, and I think for me, the easiest thing is because I do it backwards like this. And I think that saves a ton of time, and you're not moving the fabric and having to straighten it up, fold it again, and do all that. So when I'm cutting binding, I do 2 1/4 inch. So I know that I can go to 9 1/2. I can line up, move over, 2 1/4, 2 1/4, 2 1/4, and cut my strips that way so that I'm not moving the fabric. Because you straighten it once, you know it's right. And if you, like I said, if you use the whole width of the ruler, you're getting a whole bunch of space to make sure that you are 90 degrees, which makes you just that much more accurate. I keep thinking you have something to say to me, but you don't.
Well, no. Jasmine just wanted to say, I used to cut things the wrong way off, and I couldn't figure out why until I realized what WOF meant.
Oh, with the fabric.
Yes.
Yeah. So the other thing is subcutting. So let's say that I'm going to move this over, and I take one of my strips, and I'm going to cut, because you guys saw how I did the squares. But what if I need stripped pieces like this behind me? Because these are strips cut, and they're cut to a certain size. So sometimes I will take 2 strips. Usually don't like to do more than 2. And I just kind of lay them on top of one another. Make sure they're straight. So let's say I'm gonna cut 10-inch strips. What I'm doing right now is I'm making sure my 10-inch is far enough away from the selvage that I'm not gonna get a selvage yuckiness in my strip piece. But I'm also grabbing one of those horizontal lines, and I'm not using the lines on the ruler, guys. I don't use the lines on the ruler. I mean on the mat. I don't use the lines on the mat. I only use the lines on my ruler. So I could cut on this side. Which,
Really?
So I'm just gonna put it on this side so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So I just lay it out. It doesn't matter where it is. The important thing is my sides are even. I'm gonna get that
So
line.
you're going to go by what your ruler says.
I go by what my ruler says, not what the mat says.
Wow.
Because the mat,
I always trust the darn mat.
no.
Oh.
Because when you put the ruler where you think the mat is, your vision is obstructed a little bit. Because this is like a lens.
Oh.
So I always just use the ruler.
Now you tell me.
Wow. Well, your strips turned out pretty good. I wasn't worried about you. All right. I'm going to cut this one. I'm going to show you. So I've lined up that horizontal line on the edge. I know I have a good 90-degree angle. Cut. Flip it around. Now I know I can go 10. Still, so lining up this side of the ruler on the 10 and lining up that bottom again with that horizontal line. And then and this is the other thing, you hold your ruler firmly. Now I slip 2, I'm not saying I don't, I do. And usually it's because I'm too far to the edge. If I come in further and have more table space, because a lot of times I push it and I keep wanting to cut, and I end up off, and that's when I slip. But if my ruler, and the other thing is this ruler is large, so it's giving me a lot to hold down. I always feel like this moves less than my smaller ones.
Another question.
Yes, so then I have those.
What ruler do you use most often?
You know, I really like the ones with the grips on them, but this is the ruler I've had for probably at least Oh my gosh, at least 20 years.
Oh,
That's
wow.
the same ruler.
Is that the same one? Holy.
Yeah, it's.
You mean the no slip grip?
This is not a no slip.
No, I'm
This
saying the one.
I prefer the no slip.
Okay, I got you.
But this is the one I've had. This is the first one I bought, and this is the one I use the most. And it has some serious.
Any cracks in it?
No cracks, but you can see where my ruler has jumped
Oh, gotcha.
and gone onto the my blade. I mean, gosh, I'm using all the wrong words. But my blade has jumped and cut across the ruler instead, because you can see these cuts.
Well, those rulers aren't cheap though.
No, but and there's a lot of scratches on this one, and there's the corners are kind of dinged, but it measures accurately. I don't know, it's just my favorite ruler. I love a 12.5-inch ruler.
I was going to say it's very versatile.
And there's so many different ones. Do you have some? I do like this yellow because I can see it on the fabric. But there are other ones that are pink. There's black. I don't really like the black. I have a hard time seeing that. The red one I like. That one's nice. It just depends. I like that this one has lines throughout. So no matter where I set it, I'm still going to be able to line that horizontal up.
Do you use grippy?
I don't. To be honest, guys, I'm not a gadgety person. This is what I use. I'm not a gadget girl. You know, like, I don't know. I have a pin cushion that's magnetic. What else? I think that's about it. A seam ripper. Nice
Oh, my
pair of
goodness.
shears. I know.
Deb Johnson said the blade jumped and landed in my finger, 10 stitches.
Yikes!
Youch.
Yes, I remember Joyce Wood at church when she was cutting.
Oh, I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, she was cutting in the kitchen at her counter, barefoot, because we live in California and we don't wear shoes a lot of the time, because we don't have to. And she dropped the blade on her foot. Required stitches, yeah. Yeah. I don't have shoes on right now. Living on the edge. So that is how the grippy is great. Like I said, I really do like the rulers that have a little bit to the bottom of them, because it does prevent that slippage. I'm glad I flipped this over so you guys know I'm not using the mat. I only use the ruler when I cut. I think it'll help with your accuracy. I used to use the ruler. That's how I first learned. But it just wasn't accurate for me.
So that's why my strips years ago went from like a 1/2 inch to 4 inches?
They did not. The other thing is I like to do that's different is a lot of people will leave this open when they cut. For me, that's a lot of space to slip and to mess up, which is why I always do this. Now, the other thing is, if I have a lot of yardage, this was a small piece. If I have a lot of yardage, sometimes when I get done with those first few cuts and I need to bring the fabric back over and I do this and I fold it, I can lose my edge a little bit. This one's off just a little. Sometimes it happens. You just start like you did. You start over, cut that little bit off, measure over a little bit so that you have that, because that will happen. It happens to me when I cut, like if I'm cutting a lot of background for something, each time I bring it, it's like each time you move it and bring it back, it shifts a little bit. But if you make sure that you are lined up evenly across here and use this bottom as your measurement, you'll get a 90-degree angle and you won't get elbows in your strips, because that's the worst. Okay? Now I have a bunch of fabric all cut out. For I don't know
You're
what.
going to make something, right?
Probably not.
Oh,
Any other questions on cutting?
cushion upholstery.
Cushion upholstery?
No, I'm saying with those pieces.
Oh, no.
Sew them up and, yeah. No? Okay.
So, no.
No.
To make good cut, no, I wasn't saying no to you. So, know that you don't need the accuracy. This is going to be controversial. You can be accurate with the simplest of tools, with just a mat, a rotary cutter, and a ruler. You can have accuracy. Now, fancier gadgets and things make it easier for you? Sure. Yes, it will. But it isn't required for accuracy. Does that make sense? Oh, now I remember the other thing. It was 1/4 inch seams. Ugh, that's another topic. So, speak now. What else do you guys hate about cutting? Did I cover it? Did it make sense? Again, same thing, making sure that 90 degrees, move your fabric as little as possible once you line it up and get those straight edges. Get that 90 degrees. Try not to move it very much, because then you have to straighten it back up and slows you down, wastes fabric, leaves room for error. Are we good?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. Okay. If not, if you have questions, let me know. Because sometimes and this is another reason, it's like how I say I can teach math, but sometimes it's hard for me because this is easy for me. This is measurement, it's just easy. So I tend to just go so quickly over some things that may have been difficult for somebody else. And I need you guys to let me know if that part's difficult, and so I can try and explain it in more detail or try and show you how I do it. But like I said, this is just my way of doing it. It's probably not the professional or the way you're taught to do it in quilting class. Works for me. I've made a ton of quilts. I'm sticking with it. So.
Hey, did I mention how perfect you look